You're standing in a crowded room, people are talking, someone is laughing at your joke, and you still feel completely alone. That feeling has a precise cause. Epictetus identified it 2,000 years ago, and he left 3 techniques you can use tonight to break it open. Picture a work event. You have conversations, you smile, you perform the whole ritual perfectly, but on the drive home, something hollow settles in your chest. You cannot name it. You just know that not one exchange tonight felt real. That gap between being seen and being present is exactly where Epictetus worked. Most people assume the fix is to become more social, more charming, or more interesting. Epictetus would say that instinct is precisely backwards. The problem is not how you appear to others. The problem is what you are silently demanding from them the moment you walk into a room. Around 108 AD, in the coastal town of Nicopolis in northwestern Greece, a formerly enslaved man sat in an open-air classroom and dictated lectures that his student Arion recorded by hand. That collection became the Discourses. Epictetus had been owned, physically broken, and freed. He understood what it meant to depend on other people's moods for your survival. What Epictetus noticed was not a problem unique to slaves. He saw it in wealthy Roman citizens, in senators, in people who had every comfort and still reported feeling unseen. The pattern was identical every time. They had walked into their relationships carrying an invisible invoice, expecting payment in the form of approval, and they left feeling robbed when it never came. That ancient pattern is the same one running in the back of your mind at every dinner, every meeting, every date. You are not just showing up. You are showing up with a scorecard. And Epictetus built 3 specific tools to dismantle it. The first one lands fast, and it will probably irritate you because it puts the blame exactly where it belongs. The first technique is called role separation. The mechanic is simple. Before any social situation, you split the evening into 2 columns. Column 1 is yours, your words, your attention, your honesty, how carefully you listen. Column 2 belongs entirely to the other person, how they respond, whether they warm to you, whether they remember what you said. Epictetus wrote in the Discourses that the chief task in life is to identify and separate matters so that you can say clearly which things are your own and which belong to others. He was not speaking abstractly. He was giving a pre-event checklist. You rehearse the separation before you walk through the door, not after you have already felt the sting. Here's what this looks like tonight. You are going to a dinner with friends you have not seen in months. Sit in your car for 90 seconds before you go in. Say it quietly or just think it. My job is to be fully present, ask real questions, and say what I actually mean. What happens after that is not my column. Then walk in. The shift is not dramatic at first, but something releases when you stop managing the other person's reaction from inside your own head. You stop monitoring their face every 15 seconds for signs of approval. You stop mid-sentence edits. You start actually hearing what they say instead of previewing what you will say next. A second example of role separation. You are in a work meeting and you want to raise an idea you believe in. Your habit is to gauge the room first, to soften the idea until it is safe enough not to be rejected. Role separation says, your column is to state the idea clearly and honestly. Whether your manager nods or frowns belongs to a column you do not control and were never supposed to control. You will notice that the loneliness does not come from silence or rejection. It comes from the exhausting performance of trying to manage a column that was never yours. Every sentence you twist to be safer, every opinion you swallow to be liked, costs you a piece of the realness that would have made the connection worth having. But the second technique is where it actually clicks, because it shows you the mechanism in real time while it is happening. The second technique is the witness swap. The mechanic, in the middle of a social situation, you briefly step outside yourself and observe what you are doing, not what the other person is doing. You become a calm third party watching yourself in the room. Epictetus called this the faculty of observation, the ability to watch your own impressions rather than be dragged by them. Here's the concrete version. You are at a family gathering and you feel that familiar tightening, the sense that no one is engaging with you the way you hoped. Instead of following that feeling deeper into withdrawal, you pause internally for 3 seconds and ask, what am I actually doing right now? Am I listening, or am I auditing how much attention I am receiving? That 3-second pause is not meditation. It is a very fast audit. In the Discourses, Epictetus described the untrained mind as one that runs straight at every impression without stopping to examine it. The witness swap is the stop. It takes less time than a breath. It changes what you do with the next sentence that comes out of your mouth. A second worked example of the witness swap. You are on a first date and the other person checks their phone. The impression arrives immediately. They are bored. This is going badly. I am not enough. The untrained mind chases that impression into a spiral. The witness swap catches it. You ask yourself, is that impression a fact or a story I am writing? Then you return to the conversation. The witness swap does not make you cold or detached. It does the opposite. When you stop spending half your attention monitoring yourself for social failure, the other half of your attention becomes available to the actual person in front of you. That is when people feel it. That is when the conversation becomes real. What makes the witness swap difficult is that it requires a tiny moment of discomfort. You have to let the anxious impression exist without immediately acting on it. Epictetus said the beginning of philosophy is to observe your own ruling faculty, to see it clearly, without flinching, before you move. That fraction of a second of honest observation is the whole technique. Now the third technique, and this one requires something from you that the first two do not. It requires you to go toward the thing you have been avoiding. The third technique is voluntary exposure. The mechanic, you deliberately enter social situations that feel uncomfortable in small controlled doses without the goal of it going well. The goal is simply to survive it with your column intact. Epictetus was direct about this. He said that if you want to stop fearing something, you must practice being in its presence without fleeing. Here's what this looks like in practice. You have been declining certain social invitations because they feel too exposed. Networking events, parties where you know almost no one, dinners where you might have to make conversation with strangers. Pick the smallest version of one of those this week. Go for 45 minutes. Bring role separation in the witness swap. Then leave. You are not going to fix loneliness by thinking about it alone in a room. The discourses are explicit. The path forward runs through the thing you are afraid of, not around it. Each small exposure shrinks the threat slightly, not because the situation becomes easier, but because you accumulate evidence that you can stay present inside it without losing yourself. A second example of voluntary exposure. You are in the habit of staying quiet in group conversations, waiting for a perfect moment to speak that never quite arrives. Tonight, in the next group conversation you are part of, commit to saying one true thing early, before you have edited it into something safe. One sentence. That is the exposure. It is small. It is enough to begin. The exposure does not need to be heroic. Epictetus taught that progress is made in the ordinary moments, not the dramatic ones. A single honest sentence in a group chat. Staying at the party 30 minutes longer than comfort allows. Asking a colleague a real question instead of a polite one. These are the reps. The loneliness is reduced, one rep at a time. Voluntary exposure also changes the internal story. Every time you leave early to protect yourself from discomfort, you send your own nervous system a message. This was dangerous. We were right to fear it. Every time you stay and use the tools, you send the opposite message. The fear is not defeated by reasoning. It is defeated by evidence. Now, the common pitfall that causes people to abandon all three of these techniques within a week. They read role separation and think it means stop caring about people. They use the witness swap to become emotionally distant. They approach voluntary exposure as a way to get through social situations faster so they can go home. That is the wrong direction entirely. Epictetus was not teaching detachment from people. He was teaching detachment from the approval of people, which is a completely different thing. The purpose of all three techniques is to free up the part of you that was spending all its energy on surveillance and monitoring, so that energy can go toward genuine contact. The goal is more connection, not less. If you are using these tools to feel superior or untouchable, you have misread the entire project. The Discourses return to this again and again. The person who has stopped needing approval is not cold. They are free to be honest. And honesty is what other people feel when they say a conversation meant something. It is what was missing on all those drives home. Not charm, not wit, just the unedited version of you, present and unmonitored. Bring this back to tonight. The next social situation you enter, whatever it is, you have 3 things to take with you. Before you go in, split your column from theirs. While you are inside, run the witness swap the moment you feel the anxious audit beginning. And this week, pick one uncomfortable situation and walk into it on purpose for 45 minutes with the column already split. Epictetus wrote in the Discourses that no one who depends on things outside themselves for their sense of worth will ever be free. He was not saying do not care about people. He was saying stop outsourcing your stability to their reactions. The loneliness you feel in a room full of people is not caused by the people. It is caused by the gap between who you are and what you are performing. He was a slave who had nothing, and he concluded that the one thing no one could take from him was his own capacity to respond to the world with integrity. That capacity is yours too. It does not require a different personality. It does not require being more likable. It requires stopping the surveillance long enough to actually show up. The crowded room does not have to feel hollow. The dinner does not have to end with that familiar emptiness. The tools are specific, the reps are small, and the first one is available to you tonight, 90 seconds before you walk through any door. If this gave you one tool you can use tonight, subscribe. There's a new Stoic technique here every week, and once you can hold your own column steady in a room full of people, you will hit the next wall. The voice that says you should have done all of this sooner, that you wasted years, that you owe yourself an apology you cannot make. That is the next video. Why you can't forgive yourself. Marcus Aurelius knew.